Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Story Hour once again. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. Marcus, that is my last name. I'm your host, Daniel Marcus. My unparalleled co-host is Laura Blackwell. And yes, thank you for making that parallel sign, the sign of the parallel. So I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves in weird times, possibly time of war, hopefully the waning of the pandemic, but who knows, it may still have some surprises for us. Been a weird couple of years, and one thing that's been constant for my co-host and myself and many of you out there throughout these last 2 years has been every Wednesday we have Story Hour. Every Wednesday, rain or shine, war or peace, with one exception, the week between Christmas and New Year's.
Daniel's just muted himself. Daniel, you're on mute. Yep, you're on mute. Everyone is stuck listening to me be sassy.
I'm so sorry. That's better. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Story Hour. I'm your host, Dan. So that's why you're making funny signs. It was not, okay. I'm Daniel Marcus, your host. My co-host is Laura Blackwell. And welcome yet again to another week of Story Hour. I hope that you're all healthy and safe and taking care of yourselves and your loved ones in weird times, possibly time of war, hopefully the waning weeks or months of the pandemic, but who knows, it may still have some surprises in store for us. But the last couple of years have been pretty surreal, but one thing that's been constant is Story Hour. Every week, week after week, with one exception, the week between Christmas and New Year's, my co-host and I have been here facilitating the very best writers we can find to share their fabulous work with y'all. My expectations at first were much more modest than this. I started Story Hour right at the beginning of the pandemic thinking, I just want to create a space where my friends and I can read our work to each other. And I was envisioning a really kind of small community, and it just has completely surpassed any of those expectations. But the idea is the same. It's kind of a time-honored form of entertainment, which is a couple of people sitting around the fire telling each other lies. And every week we have two authors, and we do exactly that. Tonight, we're very happy to have Meg Elison and R.J. Joseph, although Meg has not made it yet. I hope that she can manage to join us. If she doesn't, if she's detained for whatever reason, we'll figure it out. We'll give you a great program. But regardless, one thing that we do is our authors suggest a worthy cause for us to shill on their behalf. And if you're in a position to help during these times, that's great. Please consider these. I'm muted again. I was muted again, wasn't I? I don't know what's going on with my.
I think it might be happening when you admit people.
Oh.
So let me be the door dragon.
Okay. All right. Cool. I don't know where I left off, but basically,
you were just starting to talk about the worthy causes.
Cool. All right. So tonight, R.J. Joseph is reading for United Cerebral Palsy. It's ucp.org. The mission of ucp.org is to be the indispensable resource for individuals with cerebral palsy and other disabilities, their families, their communities. And their vision is disarmingly simple and very powerful. It's a life of inclusion for individuals with disabilities. Pretty awesome. Meg is reading tonight for People's Breakfast Oakland. That's www.peoplesprograms.com/PBO. In addition to hot meals, People's Breakfast Oakland provides hygiene products, tents, clothes, shoes, mental and physical health services, and a lot of other resources aiming to meet the material needs of houseless folks. This was the first program of People's Programs, and since 2017, they provided over 30,000 hot meals to the community. Think about that number, and just a local organization. So it's touched a lot of people in very important ways. We're going to start the program tonight with R.J. Joseph. Rhonda Jackson Garcia, aka R.J. Joseph, is a Stoker Award nominated Texas-based academic and creative writer / professor whose writing regularly focuses on the intersections of gender and race in the horror and romance genres and popular culture. This is awesome. She's had works published in various applauded venues, including the 2020 Halloween issue of Southwest Review and the streaming of Hill House essays on the haunting Netflix series. Rhonda is also an instructor at the Speculative Fiction Academy. She occasionally peeks out on Twitter at RJ Jackson Joseph or at www.rhondajacksonjoseph.com. Rhonda, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much, Daniel and Laura, for having me. It's really exciting to be back. This is something that's really dear to my heart, telling stories. It's a really fun thing to do, especially like right now that Texas is having sort of a pretend winter night. It's nice to be kind of cozy and tell stories. So what I'd like to read is a short story, I Want to Be Free. It first appeared in the Paranormal Contact anthology put out by Cemetery Gates Media last year or so, and it will appear next in my upcoming collection, Hell Hath No Sorrow, Like a Woman Haunted. I want to be free. I always thought I was just a chick with severe daddy issues who always chose the wrong men, but no, there was something trying to kill me. I first saw it when I was about 5 years old, when my father had his hands around my mother's throat, choking her. This was his regular thing to do, get drunk and then take out whatever perceived slights he'd received from the world on us. At that time, Mama bore the brunt of his abuse. He didn't hit us when we were little. Instead, he just ignored us like the little unwanted kids we were to him. That night, my little sister and brother had already gone to sleep, and I was up alone, terrified that would be the night he would finally kill our beloved mama. I peeked from around our bedroom door, gazed fixated on my parents in the dining room of our small fourplex apartment. The floor plan was a straight shot, reminiscent of the shotgun houses in other parts of the city. I had a clear view of the two of them tussling. Mama trying to pry his hands from around her neck, and him just as determined to keep her in his grasp until I knew to be quiet, no matter how scared I was. The last time I cried out, he'd kicked Mama hard, just to show her what he would have done to me if I was older. She whimpered, but endured the onslaught, because she didn't want him to turn his attention to me. It was hard to stay silent, but I couldn't bear to allow her to die without knowing I loved her enough to witness her death. Mama knew I was there because our eyes met briefly while he had her pinned down, backwards on the dining table. He hardly ever paid us any attention, so I don't think he knew I was there. His face, contorted with sweaty rage, remained focused on his task at hand. Tears streamed down my face, and I watched Mama grow weaker, struggling to catch a breath. Suddenly, a different face from his turned towards me. Fierce features stared directly at me, enlarged eyes buried underneath a ledge-like unibrow, and elongated teeth jutting from between thick, dried-out lips. The monster hardly had a nose. Instead, two nostrils sat in the middle of its face. I shook my head to rid myself of the vision. My father couldn't have been looking at me. He was still focused on my mother lying prone beneath him. It wasn't my father, and it sneered at me, mouthing, "You're next." I blinked my eyes rapidly, petrified with fear. Mama finally pried his hands from around her neck and he stumbled backwards, his drunkenness putting a stop to his attack. She gulped in heavy breaths and looked at me to let me know she was okay. I ran back to bed and pulled the covers up over my head, happy she was still alive, terrified that I'd seen a monster more terrifying than my father. By the time I was a teenager, my father's amnesty from his beatings had long worn off. He still targeted Mama and never attacked my sister or brother, but I had become his favorite punching bag. One day when I was 16 and before I left for drill team practice, he called me a bitch and I wasn't in the mood for his shit. I'm not a bitch, you're a bitch. You're the one laying up here with no job and fighting on your wife and kid because you're weak. I figured if I was going to get hit, I'd get some hits of my own in with the best weapons I had, truth and my words. On cue, he flew up from the sofa where he'd taken up long-term residence and came running at me. I couldn't completely escape him in our tiny apartment, but I usually had a tiny bit of room to negotiate how I'd defend myself. All thoughts of defense left my head when I saw the closed fist coming towards my face. It was larger than my father's hands by at least 3 times. I stood in awe at how I could see the shadow fist extended over his flesh one, all at once encompassing it and allowing it to move at the same time. My awe cost me valuable seconds of maneuvering, and I caught the fist right on the side of my head. Stunned, I realized I'd taken the blow from the shadow fist. I scrambled blindly across the floor, keeping my eyes on the ever-changing form of my father, which had morphed from the mean-spirited and abusive man I'd known all my life to the same creature I'd seen years ago. The same bulging eyes held me in their gaze. I could still see my father's eyes and twisted expression, but the face superimposed over his held my attention. I couldn't hear what my father was saying as he caught up to me where I lay on the floor and wrapped his hands around my throat. He jacked me up against the wall, and I marveled at how the huge shadow hands held me fast against the sheetrock. They pressed and pressed against my throat, jutting brow almost meeting mine. I could see the saliva drip from the teeth, worried about what it would smell and feel like if it hit my drill team practice uniform. The face then started to laugh in my blurred vision, cackling its victory as I began to lose consciousness. From somewhere behind my father, Mama appeared like a dreamlike overcast figure. She held a frying pan, which she brought down hard on his head. My father winced and turned to face her. I was still briefly held up against the wall by the shadow hands. Neither of my parents noticed. I gained a second wind and began to kick furiously against its strength. The face stopped laughing and the hands began to disappear. One of the eyes winked at me, its parting shot unheard by my still ringing ears, but clearly understood by my blurred eyes and head. Next time. Leave my baby alone, Mama shouted. You're always beating on me, but you're gonna stop beating on my child. She brandished the frying pan in front of her like it was a gun. I coughed furiously and moved away from the both of them. That was the first time Mama had ever come to either of our defense, and the shift in dynamics was palpable. My father slinked away back to his couch, and Mama took me into the bathroom to help mitigate my injuries before my friends came to pick me up for practice. I could tell she wanted to ask me not to go to practice because everyone would see that I'd clearly been beaten. She didn't ask, though. She silently applied cold water to the growing knot on my head as tears rolled down her face. I wanted to ask her about the monster I'd seen. Had she seen it too? but the sorrow and guilt in her gaze stopped me. She had enough to worry about. Instead, I reassured her. I'll already be home from practice by the time the bruising on my throat starts to show, and I can wear a headband pulled low over the knot. I wasn't sure I was right about the bruising, but I hoped having dark skin would help in the situation. My friends still saw it all when they picked me up and gave me silent space to work myself into my drill team captain persona. They gave me sympathetic looks and hugs of solidarity, and I wanted to tell them about the monster too. I couldn't. After that, Mama's newfound courage kept my father from putting his hands on either of us ever again. But the monster still made his appearance. Sometimes it would appear on my father's face as he slept, its eyes open wide, watching me. Other times it appeared when my father verbally abused us, smiling when the human man was scowling and calling us names, moving his arms and legs in my direction as my father remained rooted in his couch. It taunted me, showing up when I least expected it, promising unspeakable consequences for me. I had to leave home. I graduated from high school with a pocket full of scholarships and a few items of clothing that I packed up to take to my dorm. I spent as little time as I could at home during that first year of college, even though I attended a local university close enough that I could walk back to my childhood home. I had to return briefly with my tail tucked between my legs when the scholarships ran out and I couldn't afford to stay on campus any longer. During that brief return, I never looked at my father and walked around him like he was a piece of furniture. I could feel the monster's gaze, even though I would never meet it. I wasn't sure how long I would have to avoid them both until I could get out on my own. When I finally moved into my own tiny efficiency apartment a few months later, I breathed a sigh of relief. I never had to go back home if I didn't want to. I could always visit with Mama and my sister and brother when they came down the road to my apartment. I was finally safe from my father and the monster. I did what most adults do when they get out on their own. My high school sweetheart and I had broken up, so I dated occasionally. I sought out men who were nothing like my father. They were tall where he was short. They were mostly silent where he was always talking. They were less bookish than he was, and they gravitated more towards athletic endeavors and rap music. During this time, I dated a police academy student. I was drawn to his personality as he assured me that he wanted to be a policeman so he could help our community. I went to his apartment with him one night after we came from the movies. I couldn't really make up my mind if I wanted to sleep with him or not, but the decision was made when he came up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist, kissing me softly on my neck. I fell into his tenderness and allowed him to lead me to his bed. Soft and gentle remained until the moment he entered my body. I flinched, eyes flying open, to confront him for not having taken his time with me. His solemn face had been replaced by that of the monster, smirking as the flesh moved within me roughly. I tried to push him off me, but was unable to raise my hands from the bed. The large shadow hands held me fast to the mattress, pressing my wrists down into the softness. I whimpered and the flesh moved faster, pounding into my body with each movement marked by searing pain. The thick, dry lips grazed the side of my face, laughing when I tried to turn my face away. Saliva dripped down from the fangs, mingling with the sweat our human bodies produced. I cried and stopped moving, deciding the best way to get through was to just endure. When the monster threw its head back and howled, I heard the haunting sound in my soul, blood turning to ice at hearing how much it enjoyed torturing and hurting me. The flesh man suddenly wiped at my tears, jumping away from me. "Are you okay?" I scrambled across the bed and sat on the floor next to it, trembling while I tried to find my clothes. I followed his gaze to the bed where streaks of blood lay garishly against his sky blue sheets. His eyes widened. "I'm so sorry. Did I hurt you? I'm sorry." He moved towards me, genuinely remorseful at the scene unfolded in front of us. I backed away, still crying. I just want to go home. He took me home, attempting to apologize a few times before I cut him off. I know you didn't mean to hurt me. I did know that. It wasn't him who had done the damage. Nevertheless, I never called him back or answered his calls after that. Next, I dated a boxer who wanted to show off his moves to me one night after we ate dinner in his gym. The monster appeared and knocked me onto the floor of the ring. The flesh fist had been nowhere near my shoulder, but the shadow fist made up the distance and floored me. I stopped calling him too, telling myself that I just couldn't date any men who had violent career paths. I went out with a dentist. I ended up having my foot rolled over by his car, driven by the large hands and snarling face that had superimposed his while he rummaged around in the glove compartment for something. He thought he had accidentally taken his foot off the brake, but I knew better. Then the couple of months I spent with a realtor ended when a pipe he was standing next to but hadn't even touched fell and hit me across the back when we were visiting a home he was representing. I stepped out of its path just far enough so the blow wasn't as disastrous as it could have been, far enough that I saw the huge hairy thigh that had pushed the pipe down. Apparently, I just couldn't date anyone. I reunited with my high school sweetheart. A man of few words, he was the opposite of everything from my father and the other men I had gone out with. I didn't count him as out of bounds because I knew that man like I knew the back of my hand. We had matured quite a bit since high school, and the worst thing I had to worry about with him was the cheating. I'd hoped he was beyond all that once we got back together. For a while, we were happy. We had a baby boy and moved in together. The future looked pretty bright. That was a false front. There was no happily ever after for me. The last big fight we started because I saw all the calls on the phone bill he made to a woman in another town while I stayed in the hospital with our son during an asthma attack. He lied about the woman, even when the evidence was in front of his face. I yelled at him that I was done and he needed to get his stuff and leave the apartment where I paid the rent and the bulk of the bills anyway. I had no sooner issued the commands when he stalked to where I stood in our living room. The calm-natured boy, grown into a calm-natured man, wore the distorted face of the monster that had haunted me my whole life. The muscled chest, twice the size of the flesh, heaved with unbridled anger. Fangs stuck out between snarled lips. Large eyes narrowed at me, and veins appeared on the thick neck that was larger than my whole head. I screamed when the flesh hand grabbed my arm and the shadow hand reached me first. Pain laced its way up through my upper arms where I was held captive. The hand squeezed. The snarling morphed into laughter around the concerned flesh face. I just want to talk to you. We can work this out. Genuine confusion danced across his face, especially when he looked down to where he held my arms and witnessed the bruising that had already started. I wasn't grabbing you. I didn't mean to hurt you. I barely heard him as I quietly repeated my request that he just leave the apartment. I rubbed my arms, crying, knowing we could never work out. Not because he was a serial cheater or because we just weren't really all that good for each other, but because the monster would never leave once he appeared. I remained single for much of my son's childhood. I didn't have much time to date, and I was fine with that. I didn't think I was missing out on anything until the friend of a friend started expressing interest in me. I wanted to ignore him, but my heart and body wanted something different. I fell head over heels for him when I overheard him tell my son, "I want to be your stepdaddy one day." We moved cautiously, living together for a couple of years before venturing into marriage. I didn't like everything I saw. He was quick to anger, although he never turned it on my son. He was overly jealous and controlling, and while I thought it was cute at first, it got old really fast. By the time he proposed to me, I didn't know how to turn down his proposal and still keep things reasonably amicable between us. I loved him, but I didn't think we should get married with so many negative occurrences in our relationship. I couldn't come up with any other answers, but I wasn't ready to confront the downslide I was sure was ahead of us. So I accepted and we got married. Where I thought he was controlling and jealous before, he became downright abusive after we married. I got pregnant quickly with 3 more kids, spaced only a year and a half or so apart. Staying pregnant through those early years of our marriage is likely what saved me from escalating abuse. He never shoved or hit me while I was pregnant. But after baby number 3 between us, I didn't have the protection of pregnancy anymore. One night, I woke up with half my head in his mouth. I felt the heat of his teeth boring into my skin like knives, threatening to take off my whole cheek back to my neck. I cried out in pain and leapt off the bed when he released his hold on me. In the glimmering moonlight creeping through the curtains, I saw the glint of sharp fangs, working to regain their assault on my flesh. The thick lips surrounding them smacked and worked, trying to free themselves from the flesh. I yelled at my husband to wake up to stop the attack. Sure, he would rather hit me than bite me. The shadow face scowled as my husband shook his head to rid himself of sleep and it. What's wrong? Why did you wake me up? He turned on the nightstand light. His eyes widened when he saw the slow trickle of blood on my face. What happened to you? You bit me. I knew he didn't care that I was hurt. He would only care that I had marks I could report. I didn't bite you. I was asleep. Maybe I was dreaming. I didn't mean to bite you. He pouted like a child being accused of something he was reasonably sure he hadn't done, but couldn't deny completely because of past behavior. I went into the living room to clean the wounds. He went back to sleep. I felt trapped. The monster had found me yet again, and this wasn't just a man I was dating or living with. He wasn't my father, whom I'd been able to finally escape. I was married to this host. I was a full-time homemaker with no job prospects, and I had 4 children to take care of. If I stayed, it would kill me if my husband didn't. But how could I leave? My husband found increasingly more compelling reasons to stay away from home. He claimed to work long hours and professed the need to stay at work overnight on some nights. I knew he wasn't working all that time, but I was grateful for the respite from him and the monster. Whenever he was home, the monster had resumed his stalking of me, watching me from the corners of its eyes, taunting me, threatening me, promising my destruction. I just needed time to finish my degree so I could just take care of myself and my children. My husband had been cutting off my avenues for freedom throughout the years. He wiped out our bank account each week, barely leaving enough money for me to pay some of the bills. He commandeered my car and took it to work himself, leaving the children and me at home without a vehicle for long days at a time, even though he had another vehicle that he parked somewhere other than our house. I made plans to take the kids out for the day and told him that we would take him to work so I could have the car. He exploded and knocked the car keys from my hands. No, you're not. I'd grown so accustomed to his abuse that I momentarily forgot to check to see if it was him or the monster threatening me. But before I could respond, he had me in a chokehold against the floor, hot breath raking across the side of my face. He sat on my body and I could see the shadow torso sitting upright on me, hairy chest heaving. The bulging forearm pressed against my throat also partially covered my mouth. There was no flesh man on top of me, only the shadow monster, empowered by the constant rage my husband had built up towards me. I struggled underneath him to push him off me, but he was too heavy. Muscled, hairy thighs held my lower body in place as he raised his free hand to turn my head in the opposite direction, a move that would break my neck. Dry lips cracked and bled in its glee, and finally having me helpless in its grip. Spittle ran freely from its fangs and pulled on my blouse. My vision began clouding and I couldn't fight anymore. Get off of Mama. The high-pitched voice came from up the stairs where my babies were. I could see the outlines of their little faces pressed into the spaces between the banister poles. The monster finally took its attention off me and looked directly at my fierce little daughter. It grinned. I couldn't allow him to curse her the way he had cursed me with his presence for a lifetime. I found a reserve of strength I didn't know I had and buckled underneath him while he was distracted. I unseated him for a quick second and then rolled my body to a prone position where I could bend my knees and force him off me. I struggled to take in air and charged him with everything I had in me. I slammed him against the hall table and picked up the decorative bowl on the table and crashed it against his head. The monster fell to the floor, fading back into my soon-to-be ex-husband. I ran upstairs and gathered my babies. We went into a bedroom where I called the police. The officer came and took our statements. I listened to my husband lie about the events, not caring. We both ended up with domestic assault charges. I endured the court meetings and the ensuing divorce battle, where my husband's lawyer argued he shouldn't have to pay me anything for spousal support because I was violent towards him. I just wanted to be free. After the divorce, I never dated again. I didn't need to fill that void in my life, and my children and I had a good life. I found a job I enjoyed and took pleasure in watching my children grow into teenagers. I'd probably feel the despair of an empty nest much more than other parents did, but I'd make it through. The other day, I turned to see my son and to tease him about having outgrown his third pair of shoes for the year. Out of the corner of my eyes, I saw the glint of familiar fangs and a hint of nose holes above thick lips, superimposed on my sweet baby boy's face. I swung my head fully towards him and the image disappeared. I just wanted to be free. Thank you.
God damn, Rhonda. That was fierce and beautiful and terrifying and painful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, it's our custom to have a moment between authors. So let's do that. Let's take a breath, get collected. And RJ Joseph, folks, thank you. So we are delighted that Meg Elison made it. She braved a blizzard, a snowstorm to get here, but not even an act of God can stop her. And this is not atypical, what we know of Meg. She is a repeated visitor here at Story Hour. I think this is her third, maybe her fourth time. So I guess she likes us as much as we like her, which is great. We're always happy to have her. Meg is a California Bay Area author and essayist. She writes science fiction and horror, as well as feminist essays and cultural criticism. She's been published in McSweeney's, Internet Tendency, Fangoria, just the best pub credit, man. Fantasy and science fiction, Catapult, and many other places. Her debut novel, The Book of the Unnamed Midwife, won the 2014 Philip K. Dick Award. Her novelette, The Pill, won the 2021 Locus Award. She is a Hugo, Nebula, and Sturgeon Awards finalist. She has been an Otherwise Award honoree twice. Her YA debut, Find Layla, was published in fall 2020 by Skyscape, and it was named one of Vanity Fair's best 15 books of 2020. Her parasocial thriller, Number One Fan, will be published in summer 2022 by Mira Books. Also, not mentioned in the latest iteration of your bio, Meg, is what personally I think is one of your coolest credits. Is Meg has a collection called Big Girl, which is in the very renowned outspoken author series in PM Press. So she's sharing that with folks like Karen Joy Fowler, Nisi Shaw, Ursula K. Le Guin, Michael Blumlein, Carter Scholes, on and on. So check it out. You can get it at all fine booksellers. Meg is a high school dropout, graduate of UC Berkeley, and we are delighted to have her back. Take it away, Meg.
Thank you all very much for having me. I apologize for being so terribly late. The snow was truly unbelievable. And I want to apologize especially to my fellow author. The last bit of your story that I caught was very good and very powerful. And thank you for sharing it and appreciate it. So the story I'm going to share with you tonight is sold, but I can't say to who because I don't have a final contract yet. But nobody knows it, so first time out. It's called the VCar. The VCar wasn't just locked, it was locked down. Gary knew that if he walked more than 10 feet away from it with the fob in his pocket, it would lock. He never had to hit the button. The car was designed to anticipate the driver's needs in every situation. But he had come back to its slick blue-black exterior with the fob in his hand, and he could see immediately that something wasn't right. Here, it's right here. Open up. Gary put his hands on its hips and sighed. The cart full of groceries sat on his left, the milk sweating condensation over its cloudy plastic jug, the greens wilting in the sun. It wasn't the hottest day of the year. It wasn't close. It was mid-June. The scent of spring still hung in the air. It wouldn't get punishingly hot until August, when Gary and everyone else would refuse to leave their houses, hunkering down in their windowless basements with the AC cranked up. Here in Western Massachusetts, August was still manageable. Gary had grown up in Manhattan, where it was already 115 degrees in the shade this time of year. He heard that people stayed in the steel and the swamp, that they'd figured out how to endure. But his parents had spent 3 years in the malarial summers and the starving winters before they decided that they had to go east, away from the city. Gary had stayed put where his people settled. He made enough money to avoid having to refugee north. He bought the right house, fortified, insulated, and the right car, autonomous, AI run, and done all the responsible things one was supposed to do these days before having a child. The VCar manual said it was safe to leave a child inside for periods of no longer than 15 minutes. It couldn't have been that long, Gary muttered. He pulled out his phone and verified his pedometer, looking at the time when he'd entered the store. Okay, 24 minutes, that's still barely, but the fob did not unlock the car. The lights didn't even blip. Gary put his forehead against the VCar, his hands forming a visor over his eyes. He could not see inside. He's got to be asleep. Even the VCar seal wouldn't contain the sound of this kid's wailing. He was like a fire alarm when he got going. Gary walked back around to the driver's side and put his palm against the old-fashioned lock in the door. The door should have thrummed to life with subtle haptic feedback at his touch, but he felt inert metal, too warm in the sunshine. Nothing stirred within. He had parked in full sun. Okay, fuck this. Gary pulled up his phone and started his VCar app. He saw there were sprites for his car and Miranda's. He saw that she was driving somewhere, clipping at a pretty good speed. He tapped his access to his VCar. A second screen opened, whisking away the pair of cars, showing a page or more of legalese. Illegal software build detected. Please return your car to the VCar dealer for a reboot and rebuild of your VCar system. I didn't do an illegal build, Gary said. What the fuck is this about? His VCar dealer was in Connecticut. That was the other problem. Massachusetts had banned the sale of private automobiles more than 10 years prior. How am I supposed to get the car there when I can't even get into it? He tapped the word dealer and his options appeared. They could remote pilot the car to them, or they could send a tow. You can't remote pilot my car, assholes. This kid is in it. He looked the car over again, trying to sense sound or movement inside. He tapped the word tow, thinking that if they sent someone who could override the car and activate it, he could at least get Bobby out and have Miranda pick them both up. You have selected tow. The nearest tow driver will arrive in 17 hours. Shit, Gary said. Gary hated calling VCar customer service. The reps were all the way in the People's Republic of California, their accent flat and disaffected, so superior. They always treated Gary like an idiot. The first thing they would ask was whether he had lost his fob. He sighed and hit the rep button. The line rang for barely a second before a bright valley voice came through the speaker. Good morning. Thank you for calling VCar support. My name is Tallulah. How can I help you today? Hi, Tallulah. This is Gary Scharf, and my VCar number is 867-529-0108. Can you verify me? A quick set of high-pitched beeps told Gary that his voice print was accepted by the automated reader. Good afternoon, Mr. Scharf. Yes, I've got you verified. Thank you. What can I do for you? Well, it's my Model H. It's like bricked or something. I've got my fob right here, and I'm so sorry, Mr. Sharpman. Have you misplaced your fob? Gary took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. No, Tallulah. I've got my fob right here, and the car just isn't responding. I've got groceries sitting out in the sun, and I need to get this resolved. I totally understand, Mr. Sharpman. Let me see if I can remote access your VCar. A moment's wait and the faint sound of clicking somewhere deep in the west. It looks like your VCar is detected an illegal software build. Yeah, my app says the same thing, but I don't do my own software builds. I use the factory settings on everything. I let it update every time you guys do a push. I'm not a modder. I don't know where that would be coming from. I don't even buy seat covers. Did you install any aftermarket products? Gary was shaking his head as if the rep could see him. Literally nothing. More faint tapping. Your other authorized user, is that your partner, Miranda Sharfin? Yes, that's my partner. She has the other VCar now. Any chance she might have done an aftermarket build, perhaps through your home hub, not knowing it would affect both your VCars? I don't think so, Gary said. Plus, her VCar is still running. I just clocked her on a freeway somewhere. Silence from Tallulah. Then, would you like me to try to remote reboot your VCar? Gary sighed with relief, feeling sweat on his brow. He had controlled himself. He had not yelled at this woman whose face he would never see. She would help him. Yes, that would be great, actually. I'm sure this was just a mistake. I'm attempting a remote reboot now. Please hold on. Gary slid the phone app aside and looked at the status of their two cars again. His car was dark and red outlined as before. And then Miranda's was too. The text came immediately. My car just shut down in the middle of the freeway. I didn't even have time to pull over. I'm literally sitting in traffic. Gary texted his partner back. I'm on the phone with them now. Hold on. Hey, Tallulah, I just heard from Miranda. She says her VCar was just disabled. She's in the middle of the freeway. Did this reboot maybe affect her? I'm so sorry to hear that. Let me toggle over to her VCar for a second. Yeah, okay. Upon reboot, the system detected the same illegal software as it did in hers. Let me get her safely off the road. No sound, no indication. But this stranger was steering Miranda's VCar across 7 lanes of freeway, using only the electronic eyes of the car to get her there. Gary waited. He looked into the dark tint of his car windows again, trying to see a sign from Bobby. But he saw only his own reflection, his furrowed brow beaded with sweat. Okay, Mrs. Sharfin is safely off I-90 and parked on the shoulder. Let me see what I can do about dispatching her a pickup. I don't mean to sound selfish, but can we solve my problem first? I've got ice cream melting. Gary had not bought any ice cream. He flipped back to his pedometer app. 30 minutes now. How hot was it? He dug for the temperature and weather app. He hardly ever used it. Not that hot. 89 degrees. How hot in the car? His mind was just starting to let him feel panic. I'm so sorry about that, Mr. Sharf, and it seems with this particular error message, I can't reboot your system with the access I have here. The car will have to stay locked down until a technician with an override tool can reach you. From what I'm seeing here, Tallulah dragged out this last word as if holding her place in a conversation, unwilling to let it go until she could finish her thought. Here, it looks like we can have that tech out to you tomorrow evening. How am I supposed to get home? The edge in his voice surprised him. He sounded like an old man or a child, petulant and expectant of care. I show multiple autonomous VCars for you within 10 miles of you now, Tallulah said smoothly. Would you like me to hail one for you? No, Gary stammered. I really need to get into my VCar. There's stuff I left on the seat that I really need. Gary laid his hands against the opaque windows. He felt the faint vibrations from within and his bowels turned to liquid. Bobby was awake. Bobby was crying. Gary felt sweat drip down his scalp. Tallulah, can you tell me how hot it is inside my car? Certainly, a few clicks. It's 101 degrees inside the car. No, wait, 102. Okay, so Gary was stammering. I have some wax candles on my seat. Handmade, local bees, really expensive. I need you to pop the hatch so I can get them out of there before they melt, please. It's an emergency. He bit his lip. It was a poor gambit, but he couldn't tell her he had locked his son in the car. He couldn't tell anyone that. His phone buzzed in his hand. Miranda again. What the fuck is going on? Standing beside his VCar, Gary felt his hands uncomfortably warm against the passenger side door. He wanted to let go, but he didn't. He let the seat heat sink into his palms. He was waiting to feel that slight vibration again. I'm sorry, Mr. Sharfin, your VCar will not respond to a hatch pop command right now. Did you try the trunk? Gary's voice sounded desperate. Another text came in from Miranda. He did not read it. Yes, I tried all the hatches, sir. I'm sorry. You might just have to kiss those candles goodbye. Gary looked for something he could use to smash a window. The VCar's glass was tempered and enmeshed. It wouldn't give up easily, but he was running out of options. But what about my upholstery? Tallulah was tapping. I'm sorry, are the candles not in a box? That's a shame. Here, I can do this. The VCar's blue-black blind windows suddenly clarified the way they would have when Gary had started the car. Sunlight flooded the cabin as the windshield went clear, and Gary could see in perfect, pitiless detail what was going on inside. In the back seat, strapped into his safety seat, Bobby was straining. His chubby little hands plucked at his harness, trying to free himself. Gary's heart was in his throat as he took in how red, how sweaty and swollen looking his little boy was. The baby's face was nearly flat with it, broad like a lower primate, his eyes huge and glassy. Gary ran around the window to nearest Bobby and looked down at his toddler, trying to connect with the boy and calm him down. As he crossed from one window to the other side, Gary could see the camera system was active as well. The main monitor showed his ankles as he ran around the car. In smaller inset pictures, he saw his face shot from beneath, the parking lot in front of the car, and the interior. He could see Bobby's face. He knew Tallulah could see that too. Tallulah, the wax is melting absolutely everywhere. I mean, it's a huge mess. I think you can see how much trouble I'm in here. It's going to be a massive expense to clean it. Gary was sprinting to the edge of the lot as he spoke. He was sure he'd find something that he could smash a window with, something, a brick, anything. His eyes caught on a chunk of broken concrete and he ran back with it. I'd really like to help you, came her careful voice. But once you've exceeded the grace period, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do. Thanks, Gary muttered, raising the hefty chunk of concrete in his right hand. He brought the chunk down and it shattered against the glass, pieces crumbling to the ground. He saw Bobby start at the sound of impact, but just barely. Gary's fist closed around the biggest remaining chunk and raised it up again. Mr. Sharfin, your VCar has activated its anti-theft system. Is this an emergency? No, Gary said peevishly as he smashed the rock against the window again. Gary hit the car with all his might, feeling the shock travel up his elbow and his shoulder. There was barely a scratch on the glass. Tallulah, this is not an emergency. An emergency can only take place within the first 15 minutes of grace, right? Hey, look, that guy's breaking into that car. Gary turned around at the sound of the voice, devastated. Somehow, he had thought he could remain unnoticed. Mr. Sharfin? Tallulah's valley voice was sharp in his ear. You have exceeded the grace period, but I don't want your candles to be harmed. I'd like to help you. Law enforcement can be... He hung up on her. He turned toward the person who had spoken, a tall man in coveralls who stared with his mouth open. Do you have tools? The man walked toward him. Yeah, but we can't... Holy shit. The tall man saw Bobby and his face changed. Miranda again, please tell me you're both okay. Miranda standing somewhere on the side of the freeway waiting to be picked up. Miranda baking in her own car or else standing vulnerable on the side of the freeway until a car came for her. Miranda still somehow thinking of them. The man ran back with something heavy weighing down both his thin arms. Without a look at Gary, the nameless taller man snatched it up and swung it in a huge descending arc against the window furthest away from Bobby. It was a pipe wrench, Gary knew. He had never used one, never seen one in real life, as far as he knew. In books for children, when the word was wrench, the picture looked like this. When the word was car, the picture looked like a round little red beetle with a steering wheel and door handles, the kind that had burned old gasoline and went beep, beep in the movies like the Roadrunner who never got caught. When the word was father, the picture was a tall, smiling person in a necktie who would never put baby in danger because he knows better. When the picture was baby, it was a curly-haired little bun in a diaper who wasn't being cooked to death in a blue-black oven because its father had made a fully avoidable mistake. The wrench did not go through the enmeshed glass on the first blow or the fifth. By the time the cracks began to spiderweb out, the tall man was crying as he swung. Gary was sobbing out loud, ready to put his hands into any crack in the dark glass and pull. When the hole was big enough, the tall man let Gary in, and Gary yanked at the glass until he'd cut his hands down to the tendons. In his pocket, his phone buzzed and buzzed. Tallulah was calling. Miranda was calling. He didn't want to tell anyone anything except the good news. Please, please let it be good news. The tall man had longer arms, so he reached through and unsnapped Bobby, maneuvered his still and steaming form through the jagged hole in the glass. Gary felt the baking heat of his son's body against his face and swore. He put Bobby into the seat of the shopping cart, pulling his limp, hot legs through the holes and trying hard not to think of hot chicken drumsticks. He pulled Bobby's shirt off and looked at the pitiful pinkness, the mottled salami color of his baby boy. He tried to imagine telling Miranda how this happened, tried to imagine facing her with a dead baby Bobby in his arms. Gary snatched up the sweating gallon of milk and ripped off the cap. He smeared the translucent plastic with his cut hands, the condensation spreading the blood out, diluting it and dripping it pink to the hot pavement. He poured the cold milk over Bobby's head, feeling the gallon jug flex and take on air in huge shuddering gulps as the white milk foamed and poured down. Gary stared at Bobby's swollen face in the torrent, hoping beyond hope. Behind them, the VCar was transmitting its distress calls to the dealership and to Tallulah and to the nearest techs in the area. It was summoning law enforcement to stop a crime in progress. It was not capable of detecting a child trapped inside. That was simply too much liability. Gary had run out of grace. Bobby gasped and sputtered, shooting droplets of milk away from the cupid's bow of his lips. Gary and the tall man both whooped and jumped. Bobby began to cry. The VCar sent out its low, soundless call. Gary reached into his pocket where he knew his phone would be ringing again, still, always. Miranda? The background noise was serene. She was in a car now. Gary, is that Bobby crying? Bobby's cry was loud and lusty, indignant. It was the cry of a child who would live. Gary put a bottle of water to his mouth and Bobby quieted as he sucked and sucked. Yeah, he's crying, Miranda. I need to tell you something. I fucked up. What happened? Gary looked his son over, whether the redness of his skin was like a sunburn. How much longer would it take to fade? Would she know by looking at him what he'd been through? Gary put his arm around the tall man and the two of them stood holding the miraculous child between them. They heaved and sighed together. The stranger reached up and took Gary's face in his hands. Their eyes locked and it was as intimate as anything Gary had ever felt. He was suspended in that moment, Bobby's cries like a wire through his ears and the stranger's eyes pinned to his. Tell her, the man said. You gotta tell her. Gary took a breath and hoped his grace had not run out. Thank you. Laura, your face the whole time. I'm so sorry.
It's good to have big feelings for the right reasons. And
Holy
two
shit.
stories did that for me.
Man,
It's a big feelings night. I would have warned you if something bad was going to happen. Oh, cool.
that was awesome. Thank you, Meg.
It's great to be back. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Come back anytime. You too, Rhonda. I'd like to thank both our authors for a really harrowing evening of terrible, beautiful, fierce work. Thanks, folks. And thank you all for joining us once again at Story Hour. Next week, we've got Michelle Belanger and Eviania Triantafilou. So come on back. And meanwhile, stay safe. Don't lock your children in cars. And oh my, we'll see you next time. Good night, everybody. Thank you.